Attacks by the Yemeni Houthi militant group on ships in the Red Sea are forcing freight firms to reroute in order to avoid the Suez Canal. This video was released by the Houthis on November 20th, showing armed men dropping from a helicopter and seizing a cargo ship in the southern Red Sea. The latest attacks came Monday, when the Houthis said drones were launched against 2 cargo vessels in the area. The Iran-aligned Houthi said the attacks are a response to Israel's assault on the Gaza Strip, which Israel launched after the October 7 rampage by Hamas militants. The situation has prompted the United States and its allies to create a multinational operation to conduct joint patrols in the southern Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. In Israel on Monday, U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said no group or state should test America's resolve.
In the Red Sea, we're leading a multinational maritime task force to uphold the bedrock principle of freedom of navigation. Iran's support for Houthi attacks on commercial vessels must stop.
The attacks have showed the ability of Middle Eastern paramilitary forces backed by Iran to upset global trade. Several major freight companies have begun sailing around Africa due to the danger, and there are signs the crisis is broadening to include energy shipments. The rerouting adds costs and delays, which industry analysts expect to be compounded over the coming weeks. While freight rates will likely increase on the longer voyages, the head of global freight platform Freightos said it is unlikely that rates will spike to the level seen during the pandemic. About 15% of world traffic transits via the Suez Canal, the shortest shipping route between Europe and Asia.
The Secretary has engaged with Wang Yi a number of times about the situation in the Middle East. You might recall he had a phone call with him on our first trip in just the initial week after October 7th, where he made very clear that if China could use its relationships in the region to urge countries to maintain calm and maintain stability, we would thought that would be a productive step. And yes, in his most recent conversation with him, he made the point that I was just making a moment ago, which is that attacks on international shipping by the Houthis don't just harm those ships and those individuals. They harm the United States, they harm China, they harm the interests of every country. And so, yes, we would welcome China playing a constructive role in trying to prevent those attacks from taking place. In addition, the United States High Representative Josep Borrell, on behalf of the European Union, NATO Secretary, I said in addition to the United States. Yeah, in addition to the United States. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg, on behalf of NATO, and a group representing 44 partner nations will soon release a joint statement condemning the Houthis' ongoing and numerous attacks on merchant vessels. The growing list of attacks includes the Houthi-led seizure of the Galaxy Leader, whose crew, hailing from the Philippines, Bulgaria, Ukraine, Mexico, and Romania, remain unjustly detained.
Bottom line is, these attacks have to stop. They need to stop. They're unacceptable. The United States, our allies and our partners, will do what we have to do to counter these threats and to protect these ships. Yeah, we're actually conducting a review right now on whether that's the right course forward. We've talked about that. No decisions made right now.
And when do you expect a decision on that?
I don't have a timeline for you, but we are reviewing that designation as we speak. We haven't seen any specific targeting or intention to target naval vessels. But you can't, when a commanding officer is looking at something coming in, a drone or a missile, I mean, he or she has to make some oftentimes split-second decisions about perceiving what the threat is and taking them down. So you can't rule it out specifically. But when you're talking about these 14 drones, I mean, it's not unlike them to launch multiple at a time, and it's difficult to know when you're knocking them out of the air. It's difficult to know exactly what their intended target was. In general, and this is why we set up this task force, it is clear that the Houthis are, at the very least, conducting a concerted effort to go after merchant shipping in the Red Sea. Well, now it just started, didn't it? And there's going to be a whole lot of hardware in the Red Sea now, naval hardware, not just from the United States, but other ships from other nations, to counter these threats. So let's see where it goes. I mean, it's up and running now. We hope it gets stronger and we're able to add additional countries and additional capabilities to it. I'm certainly not going to telegraph any punches one way or the other. I'll say this, though. As I said in my opening statement, the attacks are unacceptable. We have national security interests at play in the region. There are international security interests at play in the region, including to the threat to shipping. We take those responsibilities seriously. We're going to continue to do what we can to protect them. It's a coalition of the willing, and each nation has to decide for itself whether it's going to participate and under what circumstances. We respect that. The whole idea here is protecting sovereign assets and sovereign rights, and that's what we're doing here. And I think where China could be helpful, quite frankly, is more with the influence that we know they have in Tehran, the conversations that they can have with the supreme leader. And we have in the past, and we continue to encourage the Chinese to use that influence, use those conversations to lean on the supreme leader and Iran to stop their support for the Houthis. All I can tell you is what I've said before. I mean, they are certainly providing the means, the tools, the capabilities, the weapons through which the Houthis are conducting these attacks. The Houthis may be pulling the trigger, but as I've said, Iran's giving them the guns. It's hard to say right now. These companies obviously have to make their own decisions based on the safety and security of their vessels and their crews, and we respect that. But I think it's just too soon to know what kind of impact it's actually going to have on the global economy. That's why, quite frankly, because we're trying to get ahead of the problem set here, that's why we're standing up this coalition and trying to flesh it out and be able to counter these threats so that transit through the Red Sea can be safer and more secure than it is right now. As far as we can tell, and I'll caveat this as I have many times, our knowledge is not perfect, but we think there's still about 8 Americans that are still being held hostage, with some 140 total that we believe Hamas and other groups hold. I don't have an update for you on the progress of talks to try to get another humanitarian pause in place so that we can get hostages out. We continue to work this literally by the hour.
Шил!